Hi loves, welcome back to this channel Style by Say. On today's tutorial, we'll talk on how to make this beautiful jumpsuit with cowl neck. Mine has a sleeve, a cut together sleeve, which I can decide to push in, but it's the same pattern to cut this piece. Alright, do subscribe to the channel, share to friends, don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Alright, and to our returning subscribers, you guys are so amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Thank you. Next thing we're working on is the upper parts of our jumpsuit. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to mark is my half length. The half length I'm working with for this jumpsuit is 18 inches, and this is where it is. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. So this is my shoulder line, my start point line. So at this area now, I'm going to add or impute my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. 1 inch shoulder slope, then 3 inches for my neck width. So from this point now, I'm going to be imputing my armhole measurement. Divide your bust measurement by 6, add 1.5 inches to it to get your own chest line. Okay, your armhole stroke your chest line. So this is what I have my chest line. From this point now, I'm going to, though these points are not necessary, but let's just impute it. 10 inches is our bust points, 13 inches our under bust. This is what I have. On my chest line, I'll go ahead and insert my bust measurements. This is my waistline. I'm going to go ahead and insert my waist measurements. Then I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches to them. Having done this, I'll connect the two together. This is what I have. Then we are not going to be having a dart in the front of our piece, but let me just put it for putting sake. So to insert a dart to your dress, we are going to be working with 4 inches. Mine is 4 inches. This is my nipple to nipple measurement, or my bust palm measurement. So the dart intake I'm going to be working with is half an inch. Unless I forget, I'm going to be using this to cut out my back piece. Even though I did not make provision for my zip allowance, I'll be using this pattern paper to cut out my back piece. So having done this now, the next thing we're going to be working on is the upper parts of our jumpsuit. Now I'm going to be adding a sleeve to mine. The one in the picture, there is no sleeve to it. It's like a sleeveless, but I want mine to have a sleeve, a cut together sleeve. So from this my shoulder measurements, I'm going to be adding about 4 inches or 3.5 inches. I just want it to have a little sleeve. Okay, let's say 4 inches is fine. So this is what I have, and I'm going to extend this. Then the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is this 1 inch I marked here, 1 inch shoulder slope. I'm going to shift it to this point. Then from there, I'm going to connect it to my neck width. You can decide not to put a sleeve to your own, maybe just cut it sleeveless, fine. Just go ahead with your normal cutting. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is from this point now, I'm just going to go ahead and drag my pattern paper down to this area. There is not going to be any armhole shaping. Okay, I'm only going to be inserting an armhole shaping when I'm like shaping my dress after transferring my pattern paper to my fabric. So what I'm going to do is from this point now, I'm going to shape the dress. Let's assume this is our actual measurement. So from this area, I'll go ahead and shape my dress. Okay, So but for now, this is what the pattern paper is going to look like. I don't know, it's quite confusing. Okay, let me retake it again. This is my shoulder measurement. Okay, this is where it stops at 8 inches. I added extra 4 inches because I want it to have a cut together sleeve. All right, then from that point I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. Then from my neck width, which is 3 inches, I connected to my shoulder slope. Then from this point I connected to my armhole measurements or my chest line measurements, which is here. All right, now I'm going to be cutting this out on a paper, but when I'm about to shape my dress, I'm not going to shape it straight this way. I'm going to be shaping from this point to these dotted areas. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece out. So this is what I'm going to be having. All right, then I'm going to make an invisible mark on down my neck width. So now I'm going to be using this pattern paper to cut out on our fabric. Then we'll now slash this pattern paper again for our front. So guys, this is the fabric I'm using for this tutorial. I've gone ahead to fold it into two on a fold of 2 using my largest measurements, which is my lap. Okay, so my lap measurement is 24 inches divided by 2. I have 12 inches and I added extra 1 inch, which is making it 13 inches. That is what I folded with. Okay, so the next thing again is I'm going to go ahead and insert my trouser length. Okay, how long your trouser is or how long your jumpsuit is going to be. So for mine, I'm working with 44 inches including my seam allowance. Okay, yours can be shorter, yours can be longer. The choice is totally yours. Now the next thing we're going to be working on is on the waist, the hip and the lap line. So this is my startup line and this is where my waist measurement is going to be. All right, so from this point now I'm going to mark 9 inches, which is my hip measurement. So this is where my hip measurement is going to stay, where I'm going to start it. Then from the waist measurements again, I'm going to be inserting my crotch depth. Okay, so what you have to do is you divide your hip measurement by 4. For instance, my hip measurement is 38 inches. When I divide it by 4, I will have 9.5 inches. Okay, so the 9.5 inches, I'm going to be adding extra 1 to it to get my crotch depth, making it 10.5 inches. Okay, that is assuming I'm working on a trouser or a pants, trouser pants. That is my crotch depth, 10.5 inches. But because this is a jumpsuit, I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch to it, making it 11.5 inches. So from here now I'm going to mark my 11.5. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. To get your crotch depth, divide your hip measurement by 4, add 1 to it. That is your crotch depth. Okay, when you're working on a pants, on a trouser. All right, but if it is a jumpsuit, whatever your crotch depth is, kindly add extra 1 inches to it again to get your crotch depth. That is to say, your hip measurements, when you divide it by 4, add 2 inches if you're working on a jumpsuit. So having marked these points now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead now to do is to divide my hip measurements again. So my hip measurement is 38. When I divide it, I have 9.5 inches plus extra 1 for seam allowance, which will give me 10.5 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark it on my hip line. I also mark it on my lap line, which is the crotch depth here. I think this chop is right. Now the next thing I'm also going to do is to mark it on my waistline, which is here. Having done this, I'll go ahead and connect them together. So this is what I have. All right, now from this hip line, now I'm going to be making a curve into my lap line or my crotch depth. All right, you'll be asking, I didn't measure my lap line. Remember, I folded with my largest measurement, which is my lap measurement. My lap is 24 divided by 2, which is 12, plus extra 1 inch, making it 13 inches. Okay, so that is what I have here. Now on my waistline, you divide your waist measurements by 4. My waist is 28. When I divide it by 4, I have 7, and I'm going to be adding extra 1 inch to it, making it 8, which is here. Now from this point now, I'm going to be connecting it to my hip line. Go ahead and connect it to your hip line, which I've done this way. Now the next thing we're going to be working on is the shaping of our trouser leg or our jumpsuit leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the bottom part of my trouser, and I'm going to mark. This is what we have, 13 inches, our lap line, our lap measurement, right? I'm going to get the center point of this, my 13 inches now. My 13 inches, that is the center point is 6.5, which is here. Sorry, my chalk is not clear. I don't know, it's faint. So now I'm going to be marking how wide you want your trouser to be. You can decide to mark 4 inches on both sides. You can decide to mark 5 inches on both sides. All right. So now the choice is totally yours on how wide you want yours to be. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using 5 inches on both sides. So now from this point, I'm going to connect it to this area. So from this area now, from my lap line, I'll go ahead and connect it to that 5 inches I marked on the bottom part of my trouser. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. I don't know, I've tried different chalks, but it's still not clear. So I don't know what else to do. Just watch closely, you understand what I'm doing. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece out. So this is the cutting process. This is my waist. I'm gonna need to cut it out. I'm cutting down to the hip, to the lap line. Then from here, I'm going to be cutting it straight to my 5 inches. Then I picked up from here again. Having cut this out, I'm going to be using it to cut out my back piece. Okay, at this point now, I'm gonna ahead to fold my fabric into two. This is for my back piece. Now I'm going to be introducing my front piece to it. So this is my front piece. I'm going to be introducing it. I'll just go ahead and place it on top of the folded material. That's what I'm going ahead to do. Having done this now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 inches to this center piece, not this side please, this area. Now I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches to it. So from this point I'm going to add 2 inches till I get to the bottom of my trouser or my jumpsuit. Then from this upper part too, I'm going to be adding 2 inches. So that's what I'm going to go ahead to do now. Okay. Also adding 2 inches here. 2 inches. 2 inches. I'll do that till I get to the bottom of my trouser. So guys, at this point now I'm done marking my 2 inches. Now I'm going to be adding extra 1.5 to my back inches from this point. This is center. Okay, so from here now I'm going to go up by 1.5 inches. This is 1.5 inches I went up by. Now from there I'm going to be connecting it to my waist in a slant form. This is what I have. Then for my front piece, I'm going to be reducing it by 1 inch this way. I'll reduce it by 1 inch and I'm going to connect it in a slant to my waist. Alright, so the back piece you increase it by 1.5 inches, then for the front piece you reduce it by 1 inch. Note, your back piece you can decide to increase it by 2 inches. Okay, depending on your body size, but 1.5 inches is okay for me. So I'm going ahead to cut this out now. I'm cutting out the back piece. Then another thing to note is on getting to this hip area, remember we curved for our front, we're also going to be making a curve from that hip line into our lap measurements or crotch depth. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out till I get to the bottom of my trouser. So now this is my front piece. Okay, this is what I have for my front piece. Now I'm going to be bringing up my back piece. I'll face it right sides facing each other, please. So this is my back piece. I've placed it on top of one of my front piece, right sides facing each other. I also do the same thing for this other side of my trouser. Now I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch on it on the side using 1/2 inch. Remember we use 1 inch seam allowance, So I'm going to be using half an inch on both sides. So I'm going to use half an inch and run a stitch down. The same thing for this area. I'm not going to be touching this crotch area, please. I'm going to start from the lap line or the crotch depth. That's where I'm going to start from. I'll run it down. Now there is going to be a pocket in this jumpsuit. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to stitch about 1 inch or half an inch. Okay, let's say we'll have 1 inch from the upper part. I'm going to stitch 1 inch. So let's mark 1 inch. So when I get to this 1 inch, I'll tighten my stitch. Then I'm going to give 7 inches space. This is for my pockets opening. This is where my pocket is going to be. Then I'm going to close down my side seam. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So this is for my back piece. I'm gonna have to place my pattern paper on it. Then I have a space left for my zip allowance. I have about 1.5 inches here for zip allowance. Now I'm going to be cutting this out. Having done this now, the next thing to do is to mark your neck depth for your back piece. So my neck depth for my back piece is going to be 2 inches. So this is my 2 inches, and this is 3 inches where my neck width lies. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So this is what I have. All right, now we're going to work on our front piece. Please, this back piece is 1 piece. You're going to be cutting out 2 pieces for it. So guys, now we're going to be slashing our front piece. So I'm going to be slashing it from my chest line. Let's go ahead and make a slash on it. Okay, so I've slashed it. You can decide to cut it off entirely, tape it down with a tape, which is totally fine. You can decide to leave few inches before the cutting it out of entirely. So this is what I have. All right, I'm going to be placing this on my fabric. The more border you open it, the more wider it is, the more flounce effects or cowl neck effects you will get. All right, the smaller you close it, the more the lower you have your flounce. This is what I have. Now I'm going to be cutting out this piece. Okay, remember, the more you turn it, the more the cowl effects, the more it's going to be. All right, so this is what I'm going to be working with. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to be connecting it to this area. Just watch closely what I'm cutting. So this is what I have. Now I'm going to be notching my neck width, which is at 3 inches here. I'm going to go ahead and notch it. This is where I'm going to be joining it to my back piece. Okay, so I'm going ahead to notch it. So I'll open it up. When I open it up, this is what I will have. This is what is going to look like. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do to this piece now is I'm going to be hemming this area. Okay, these rough edges, I'm going to go ahead and hem it, but I'm going to stop at this point where I notched. Okay, so you can decide to use this fabric, cut out a long strap, use it and hem it, or you can decide to work with a cotton bias. All right, the same thing I'm going to do for my back neck. All right, yeah. At this point now, I've gone ahead to hem my neck area. All right, so this is what I have. I've also gone ahead to all of them, both the front and the back. Now I'm going to be joining the two shoulders together. So I'm picking this one first. Remember, there is a point we notched where our neck width stops, and that is here. I'm going to pick it, the front and the back piece. I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and join the two shoulders together. I also do the same thing for this other side. Okay. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to be working on is on this armhole area. Okay, I'm opening. Now I'm placing it this way. Sorry, I was meant to do this while placing the pattern paper on the fabric. We skipped it. So now just place the two back and front together. Make sure that the two are lining together. Okay, you will notice where your curve is from your front pattern piece, or better still, from the upper part you take your armhole measurements. All right, so we have 7.5 inches, which is there. So you go ahead and notch the two of them. So we're going to go ahead now and hem this point from this area. Now I'm going to hem it to this notched area here. Okay, after I'm done with this, I'll shape this upper part. At this point now, I'm going to be shaping my dress. Now I'm going to mark my waist measurements, which is 7 inches. Alright. Note, I deducted the zip allowance before placing my tape. So this is where it is. Then my bust area is 8.5, right? I have it somewhere here. Now from this point now, I'm going to be making my curve into where my armhole stops. Remember we made a stitch. Remember where it stops, that's where I'm going to stitch it into. So from this point I'm going to make a stitch into that point. Alright, so that's what I'm going to go ahead to do. So this is for my pockets. All the sides are 14 inches. Okay, on a fold, I fold it like this now. This side is 14, this side is 14, this side is 14. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in this way, run a stitch here. When I get to somewhere here, maybe half an inch, I'll stop. The same thing with this upper part. Then we'll go ahead and join it to our jumpsuit, the trouser part. So this is what I'm going to do. This is my pocket. I'm going to open it up. Open up this piece of my trouser. Remember there is a part to the left for our pockets. So now I'm going to place it right sides facing each other. Go ahead and insert the pocket to it. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. So guys, after inserting my pocket, the next thing to do now is to join my two trouser pieces together. Okay, so I'm going to be picking the front pieces. So this is one of the front leg, this is another one. I'm going to pick the two of them this way. Now from this point I'm going to run a stitch on it. I'll keep running this stitch on it till I get to this point. Please make sure that the two depths are equal. I'll cross that line, keep running. Then from here now I'm going to be making a slant into this area because the back is going to be having a zipper. So let's say I'm getting to this point, I'm going to stop. Let me say from the up getting to 8 inches or 9 inches, I'll stop. That is where my zip allowance is going to, my zip is going to stop. All right, so from this point now we're going to be forming a V shape. So that's what I'm going to go ahead to do now. So I'm done joining the two legs together. This is what we have. Now I'm going to be attaching the upper parts of my jumpsuit. So this is the center part of it. I'm going to join the center to center around. Okay, please make sure that it aligns together both this side. That's what I'm going to go ahead to do now. When I'm done with this, I'll go ahead to attach my zip to my dress.